Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's cold here in San Francisco. Oof. I imagine it's not so cold in Madrid, though. I should look, see what it says. How warm is it? $33 in Madrid. San Francisco, 14 degrees. Hello, Dennis. You're with us again. Up in Calistoga, how warm is it? Probably 22 or so.
Well, I don't know. I don't know centigrade. I know Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
66 degrees.
20. It's exactly 20. What a lucky guess. That was a very lucky guess. It's funny how we have these some talents that really being able to guess temperature is not all that useful, I guess. But I see a new face. Danielle. Welcome. I'm getting these series of messages from my daughter, who is very involved in the Black Lives Matter movement, the anti-racist movement in the United States. And she has now moved to, she says, you, Dennis, you're going to probably laugh at this one. She says, you can't be a capitalist and not be racist. So now she's gone from anti-racist to anti-capitalist.
Oh, wow.
I know. And then owning land, being a landlord is unethical. So
makes sense.
Yeah, Anna Monica agrees with that, I guess. So I said, well, you can do what you want with your inheritance. If you want to just give it away, that's up to you. The Buddha, he maybe unlike Christ, he didn't think the rich were bad. You could be rich and you could be a Buddhist. You could be rich and you could be ethical. And that was why part of the Noble Eightfold Path had one of the eight, so this is how important it was called right livelihood. How do you make your living? Do you make your living on slaves? Do you make your living selling, potions, drugs, alcohol? If you did, then that was not right livelihood. But if you practiced, or if you earned a living through non-harming, that was okay. It was how did you make your money and what did you do with your money? If you made your money selling weapons, no, that was not considered right livelihood. But if you were a farmer and you sold food, that was okay. Or even if you were a regular merchant, there were many merchants who converted. And in fact, there were even kings and queens who converted to Buddhist, and that was okay, as long as they practiced non-harming. There's somebody named M, Anna Monica, in the waiting room. Miss M.
I don't recognize it. I'll monitor it.
Well, you're going to let them in, right? Okay, you did. Thank you. You watch that M, just in case. Okay, so yeah, we will welcome everybody, by the way. So good to see you. I know you guys are hanging in there. We will meditate for 30 minutes. I do want to say something for those of you who were on the call last week. I described working with thoughts with a little bit of effort. I think I may have described it as like pushing away thoughts. And if I said that, over the week, I was noticing how I deal with thoughts. And I noticed it wasn't a case of pushing away as much as pulling away from the thought. Like it's like the thought almost stayed where it was, and then I would pull my attention away and put it back on the object, the breath, the body, or whatever. It wasn't a case of go away thought, and then I'm with the breath. It was more like extracting myself from the thought and then focusing on the object. I hope that's, and it may not be for everybody that way, but that's how it seemed to me. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody want to say anything before we start or have a question, comment? So we'll do, oh yes, Luis, go ahead. You can unmute yourself, I think.
Writing the thoughts and pulling from them or pushing them away, isn't it to let them be and
Yes.
let them go?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
seems to me that is different from pushing or pulling.
Well, last week we were talking about the really sticky ones. Like let's say normally you're right, we can just let them be or let them go, however you want to say that. But sometimes they have a lot of apego, right? Sometimes they're just, very sticky and we obsess. And that's what I was talking about, where we have to generate a little more energy to extract ourselves from the thought. Just simply letting them go like clouds in the sky sometimes doesn't work because there's too much grip. And so we use a little more energy. Sometimes we have to use a little more effort. And I think last week I was describing that effort as pushing them away, but really I think it's more like we have to pull ourselves away. It's like when something is really interesting, or a little child, maybe at the zoo or something, they're so interested in what they're looking at, and you kind of have to pull them away.
I find that at times is even impossible to get rid of them, either pulling or pushing, right?
Exactly.
And in that case, I don't know, but it might be of interest to stop meditation, and take care of the thought. I don't know.
I agree fully. Yeah, absolutely. Deal with it. Maybe even get up and do a little walking or maybe a little writing. Some people I've heard keep a notepad beside them and so they'll write down the thought to help kind of let it go because the mind might not want to forget it. It's like, I want to remember this. So we write it down and then the mind is calm, feels more relaxed, and then you can let it go for the meantime. But true, this is a very good point. Very much meditation is not about not having thoughts. It's about our relationship with those thoughts. In the samatha practice that we normally do for the first 20 minutes or so, though, the idea is to think less, concentrate on an object, on an anchor to calm the mind. And so in this practice of samatha, unlike vipassana, we are trying to let go of those thoughts again and again and again, calm the mind with an object. And then once we get into vipassana, we might stay with the thoughts if you can. A lot of times when we say, okay, I'll stay with you thought, they run away and hide. They disappear. Okay, which is what we'll do today. So we'll just do about 20 minutes of samatha, which is samadhi practice, concentration practice, just trying to stay with either the breath, the body, or sounds if you prefer. And then at about the 10-minute mark left, I will introduce some instructions to have a more open awareness and just be aware of whatever arises and stay with whatever is most obvious, including thoughts, sounds, feelings, whatever it might be. Okay. Okay, I will set our timer. So, yeah, find yourself, if you haven't already, a comfortable posture, one that you can maintain, hopefully, for the entire meditation, but yet is not too comfortable so that you feel like sleeping. And if you are tired, especially those of you in Europe, and if it's difficult to stay awake, you can always open your eyes during this meditation. Normally, we close our eyes to avoid the distraction of seeing, but if you're tired, sleepy, opening your eyes often helps. So let's put our attention, our awareness into the area of our belly. Let's start there. Noticing the sensation of breathing at the belly, the movement, expansion and contraction of the belly. And then drawing your awareness upwards, bringing your awareness upwards towards the head, following the route of the breath through the chest, through the throat. And maybe you could even imagine, as Suvacho guided us, that the breath leaves through the top of the head, the crown of the head, and enters back in through the crown of the head, all the way back down to the belly again, creating a line through the chakras. And then feeling your arms and your hands. Hopefully you can notice where your hands are touching your legs or each other if you have your hands in your lap. Maybe feeling a little weight, a little pressure, maybe a little heat in centigrade or Fahrenheit. And then coming back to the belly, recentering in the belly. Finding your breath again. And now moving down into the sit bones, the buttocks. Noticing the pressure on the chair or the cushion, the couch, the bed. And then into the legs, the upper legs, lower legs. feet. Noticing where the legs touch the floor, the bed, the couch, or the feet touch the floor. And we're not trying to create any concepts or ideas about this, but just the bare knowing, the experience of touching. And then try to envelop, wrap, bathe your whole body in awareness. See if you can feel your whole posture at once, at one time. And as we continue with the samadha, calming, concentration practice, you could use your posture as an anchor, as a place to return to when you notice your mind has been thinking. It's a broader, more expansive awareness than with the breath usually, but it can be quite comfortable for some people. I like it very much. Just feeling the posture, the weight, the form, again, without concept, just a bare knowing. Maybe noticing a little tingling in the posture, in the body, current of energy, qi, they call it in Chinese, body energy. And now let's go back to the breath. So this is a very common anchor for our attention. And I recommend you find, if you want to use the breath as your anchor, as your base, as your object, find a place where the breath is pleasant and easy to follow, where you enjoy your breath. Maybe the belly, maybe the chest, maybe the nose, maybe the whole sendero, the whole route, the whole path. And as we mentioned it before the meditation, so this is very much a practice with the thoughts. So the thoughts will come, we notice, we let them be, we let them go, we redirect back to our object. We come again, we let them, we notice, we let them go, we let them be, we come back to the object. Sometimes it's very easy, just simply moving the attention. Sometimes it might take a little more effort to come back. But the important thing is just to keep coming back to the present moment, keep coming back to the bare knowing of your experience right now. Through the breath, the posture, and finally, you could also use hearing or listening as an anchor. This is a very receptive technique. Can be quite calming if you want. So you've got three options. And again, noticing also the attitude of the mind. When you notice your thinking, is there some irritation, some frustration, or simply curiosity, compassion, kindness? Sometimes we think of our mind like a young child or like a puppy. It can be quite unruly at times, meaning it just kind of does what it wants to do rather than what we want it to do. But we don't get mad at it. We don't yell at it. We just keep encouraging it to come back to the breath, come back to the body, come back to sounds, whatever it is. So buena práctica, and I'll give a little more instruction when we have about 10 minutes to go. If your mind is a little more stable, calm, and you'd like to try a form of vipassana meditation, I invite you to allow whatever arises into your awareness to be your anchor. And when one thing fades away, or when it fades away, and another arises more obvious, let that be your anchor. And so the mind, the attention might move from the breath to a sensation in the body, to a sound, to a thought, back to the breath. And we're noticing the impermanence of all conditioned phenomena. So we see how things arise, they stay a little while, and then they leave. And we're also practicing a continuity of mindfulness, maintaining our mindfulness, our attention, our awareness, even as different things arise and pass away. Or you can continue to practice the samadha, where you're just trying to stay with the one anchor, the one object. Either is good. And labeling, just I'll add that labeling often can be supportive with the vipassana. Feeling, hearing, thinking, sensing, kind of like that, to track your experience, if you'd like, if it's supportive. So no matter where your attention has been, let's return to the body, re-grounding ourselves in the present moment, re-establishing that sense of embodied awareness. So we could go back to the belly, finding the belly, finding the breath in the belly. And then infusing or filling the whole posture, the whole body with awareness. Just noticing any tingling, maybe there's some pain now or parts that are sleeping, body parts, feet, legs, hands. We just notice. And then extending this awareness a little beyond the skin into the energy field of the body. Feeling the skin. Maybe there's some different temperatures at the level of the skin, some tingling. And then imagining that you can extend your awareness to include everybody here on this call, meditating together. Imagine we can wrap our awareness around them all and give them a big awareness hug. A mindful, virtual hug. And then reminding ourselves, in case we forgot, that we practice not only for our own benefit, to have more well-being in our life, but also for the benefit of all beings. And that really the best and most important thing we can do to help others is to help ourselves first. Take care of ourselves. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just being aware again of whatever arises, any thoughts, expectations, disappointments, bodily sensations. Thank you, everyone, for supporting my practice. It's a pleasure to lead you in a meditation these Sundays. Last week I was intending to talk a little bit about social harmony and a translation of various quotes of the Buddha that had been done by Bhikkhu Bodhi about social and communal harmony. But meanwhile, since last week, I was introduced by another teacher to a list of eight things also taught by the Buddha, that I thought would be a little more interesting to bring up. It's a discourse that the Buddha gave to his stepmother. As some of you probably know, his birth mother died very shortly after the Buddha's birth, and we're not sure whether it was days after or maybe within a year, but when he was very, very young. And so then her sister, who was also married to his father. So back then, I guess you had multiple wives and maybe they were sisters. Anyway, she raised him. So his aunt became like his stepmother, or was also his aunt. And over time, she also ordained and became a follower of his. And so a lot of the teachings of the Buddha are done in a conversation format, where somebody asks him a question and then he answers the question. And so this is a discourse between his stepmother and him. And I found a nice translation by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who I've talked about in the past. He is an American monk who lives here in California, in fact, down in San Diego, has his own monastery, and he's a prolific translator of Pali. I mean, he is probably even more than Bhikkhu Bodhi. He has translated the teachings from Pali. So I'm going to attempt to use the share screen so you can all see it. It's quite short. See, so I think I've done this before, but I still am rather clumsy at it. So let's see. I'm going to push share screen. There we go. And then, where is it? Ooh, I got too many things up. So let's see, where did you go? Okay, hold on. I've got to go backwards here and find it. There it is. Now go back to you guys. Share screen. Aha. All right, here we go. So can you all see something that's titled, in brief, Sankita Sutta? Are you able to see that? Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Whoa, that was weird. Cold here in San Francisco. That was interesting. I inadvertently pushed the YouTube live streaming. Okay, so I will read it and you could follow along. And I'm going to, a couple of the translations, he just shows us the English, but there are different ways to translate it. And there's a couple that I'm going to kind of also introduce other ways that I've heard it translated to make sure it's clear. So it's done in this sort of third person witnessing way. I've heard that on one occasion, the Blessed One, the Buddha's often the Blessed One, right, was staying near Vasali at the gabled hall in the great forest. Then Mahayapajana Pati Gotami, this is his mother-in-law, went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, stood to one side. As she was standing there, she said to him, "It would be good, Lord, if the Blessed One would teach me the Dhamma in brief." This is the title of this group too. The Dhamma in brief, such that, having heard the Dhamma from the Blessed One, I might dwell alone, secluded, heedful, ardent, and resolute. And these are qualities that especially monks and nuns were encouraged to develop. Gotami, he writes, or he says, the qualities of which you may know, these qualities lead to passion, not to dispassion, to being fettered. That means to be fettered is to be attached, not to being unfettered, to accumulating, not to shedding or letting go. Now, I think we would say letting go rather than shedding. To self-aggrandizement, not to modesty. To discontent, not to contentment. To entanglement, not to reclusiveness. Reclusiveness sounds funny. To laziness, not to arouse persistence. Arouse persistence is really energy. To being burdensome, not to being unburdensome. You may categorically hold, this is not the Dhamma. This is not the Vinaya. This is not the teacher's instructions. And this is often done this way in the teachings, where they'll give you it in the negative, right? So first, this is not the Dhamma. As for the qualities of which you know, these qualities lead to dispassion, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this one. Lead to dispassion, not to passion. To being unfettered, not to being fettered. To shedding or letting go, not to accumulating. To modesty, not to self-aggrandizement. To contentment, not to discontent. To reclusiveness, that I'm not pronouncing that right.
Reclusiveness.
Thank you, Anna Monica. Reclusiveness. Reclusiveness, not to entanglement. To arouse persistence, energy. Not to laziness. To being unburdensome, not to being burdensome. You may categorically hold, this is the Dhamma. This is the Vinaya. This is the teacher's instructions. That is what the Blessed One said, gratified, Mahapajapati, Gotami, delighted in his words. So it is, and it is quite brief, right? It's only these 4 paragraphs. And here I put the list, just hopefully it's a little clear. Dispassion, unfettered, letting go, modesty, contentment. How do I say that again, Anna Monica? Reclusiveness.
Reclusiveness.
Reclusiveness. Persistence, being unburdensome. I like this one. My translation of this is not being a pain in the ass. Having a sense of independence, right? And not being a burden on others. I wanted to show you one other thing. Let's see if I got it. Oh, did I accidentally? Rats. No. What did I do with it? Let's see if I go there. Oh, rats. I seem to have lost it. It would take me too long to find it. So what I wanted to show you also was that this particular sutta is a list of 8. And it comes from a book, you could say a sutta, that is numerical, where all the lists are then in lists. So it has the lists of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And this is a list of 8. And there's many. It's unbelievable how many there are. And I wanted to just demonstrate that to you, but I seem to have inadvertently closed it. And it might take me too long to find it. So anyway, so I thought we would talk about this a little bit. I think there's a couple that can be kind of like controversial, right? Let's see if I go back to here. So I remember the first time I heard dispassion, I felt a little bit of aversion to that, because I think the way I was kind of raised, I was raised to be passionate about something was good, right? That the opposite of being passionate about something was not caring, being like depressed or something like that. And that isn't what the Buddha is talking about when he says dispassionate. It's more a sense of equanimity. it's a sense of like balance, where we're not so attached or so identified with something. And so my personal story, of which Dennis will probably understand, well, you guys will, I will translate it into football terms, okay? But I've been a basketball fan here in the United States, and I've had season tickets, you know, butacas, for a basketball team for 30 years, more, 35. And I was very passionate about our basketball team, even though the team was not very good. It usually would lose. And then I found practice, and with practice started to come exactly what the Buddha said: some dispassion, kind of letting go of these external things. And I let go of my passion for this basketball team right when they got good, where suddenly they're the best team in the country, but yet now I don't care. And it was such a change. You know, I'd go to a game and I really didn't care whether they'd win or lose. And people, much like a football game in Spain, I mean, they go crazy. People are like screaming at the top of their lungs and, you know, just out of their minds, with passion, really, I guess. And yes, there was a kind of part of me that sort of missed that, because they were good for 5 years in a row. They were the best, you know, it's like the Real Madrid of basketball. And yet I was kind of like, no me importa. It's like, I don't really care. So anyways, not to worry. We still can love. We still can love. We still can have interest, but the outcome is not so important. It stops being important, right? It's much more about the process, about being in the moment. And we stop identifying. You know, one of the surest ways to suffer is to identify with something, you know? I remember those games where I'd go to these basketball games, and our team, see, there's the identity, right? Our team, my team, right? Had this tendency to play really well right up into the last few minutes, and then they'd lose, right? So you'd get your hopes up. You're like, yeah, we're going to win. We're going to win. And then in the end, you just, feel so bad. Everybody leave, you know, with their head down, or if only we had done this, if we had done that, as if it was all, you know, us. It was a classic case of what is not Buddhism. You know, it's a classic case of the first list that the Buddha gave of being, you know, passionate. The second one, I think, is much more clear: fetter. Okay, they talk about fettered or attachment. And this is such a key part of Buddhism, right? Where we don't get attached. And if we do get attached, we notice it with our mindfulness, and then we try to let it go. Or much like the thoughts during meditation, sometimes, you know, we got to kind of pull ourselves away, you know, or we might get addicted to something, right? We could get addicted to drugs and alcohol. We can get addicted to people. We can get addicted to the news, you know, all sorts of things. The mind has this ability, and sometimes it's kind of a difficult process, but we want to be unfettered. This is the freedom, right? I like this next one of not accumulating, which I translated as you know, letting go, but it's really about having a simple life. You know, it's interesting, in Spain, in Madrid, up until Saladana, you know, my possessions were much less than in the United States. I had one and then 2 bicycles, no television, you know, much less furniture, as many of you know, been in my living room, you know, a simpler life. Then I come to the United States, I've got a car, I've got a house, I've got 2 kids, I've got an office, a bunch of clothes, which Anna Monica helped me set aside. I can even show you they're sitting there in bags now, ready to go. Give them away, but just, and this is a quarter or an eighth of what I had at one point. And it is true that this is a mental practice. It's an internal practice. And it's also true that our externals can make it more difficult to have internal peace. We can meditate all day long, but if our outside world is an absolute shambles where we've just got stuff everywhere and things to worry about, businesses, kids, sick parents, or whatever, it's going to be harder to practice. Not that we want to get rid of our sick parents, but I'm saying we get rid of what we can. We let go of what we can, what we don't need. The fourth one being modesty. Oh my gosh, I have no idea what that is. Can someone tell me what is modesty? That one's still a very much a work in process for me. Someday, I hope I'll have a little bit of modesty. Contentment, that one I think is pretty clear. We want to practice being content with what we have, right? I mean, this I think is more important than happiness. And it's funny, happiness is not on this list. It's contentment, being at peace, being satisfied, right? I've said this a lot. I used to say this a lot more, but one can almost summarize the Dhamma in brief, or better yet, someone can almost summarize dukkha, or suffering in brief, as wanting things to be different than they are. That almost sums it up, right? Wanting things to be different than they are. And contentment comes when we can be with things as they are, right? Coronavirus, confinements, these types of things. Those of us who fight it, I can't stand this confinement. When will it be over? What is wrong with this government or whatever? We're then in discontent. And we can kind of be, even with this crazy, crazy thing, that's contentment. So the next one on the list is reclusiveness. Now this one, most of the teachings of the Buddha actually were given to monks and nuns, in part so that they would memorize the teachings to pass it on to then the next nuns and monks, and it just kept on going. And for hundreds of years, that was how it was remembered. It was just remembered orally. They heard it, remembered it, passed it on. A lot of them are in chants. So he was not talking to a layperson. He was talking to his mother-in-law, but she was a nun. So the reclusiveness is a little bit, we're doing it very well, right? During confinement, we're doing great. We're being reclusive, so we're fitting this one perfectly. But the other flip side of it, the definition is free of entanglements. So I like that. Not that I want to be entangled, but I like the description of that. I think of drama, right? Where we get into these relationships with lots of drama, people and their problems, and sometimes we can find it as a refuge because then we don't have to look at ourselves. We don't have to be with our own feelings. I'll just find a refuge in somebody else's entanglement, somebody else's drama, right? And then I can escape my own issues. And so that is not the Buddha's way. The Buddha's way is to find, not that we're completely, we're not hermits, we're not, but that we stay free of drama, free of entanglements, free of all that messy, we surround ourselves with people who are on the path, basically, right? And not a bunch of people not on the path. Okay, real quick, because I want to do a little metta meditation. So the seventh one of this list is to have an energetic persistence, not laziness. So this does require that we show up. You know, to wake up, we need to show up. And you obviously showed up here. You've shown this energy that the Buddha was talking about, right? And sometimes we need it moment by moment. Right? Even when we're meditating, you know, we find ourselves, we're starting to fall asleep. We got to arouse some energy. You know, as Suvacho talked about a few weeks ago, you know, the practice is about being relaxed, but also being bright, being awake, being conscious, being mindful. And then the last one on the list, maybe also a little controversial, but I like it. It works well for me. Is being unburdensome, or not being burdensome, not being a pain in the ass, right, to other people. Taking care of ourselves, right? Not looking to others to solve our problems, you know, not blaming others.
Jim?
And this is where meditation really comes in. I think this is probably, it is the best way I know of to take care of myself, is to meditate and to keep meditating. Because when I do that, I give myself what I really crave, what I really want, which is just kind listening, kind attention, you know, unity between mind and body. It's so nurturing. And when I do that, I'm less burdensome. I think Anna Monica might want to say something. She could tell you whether I'm burdensome or not, because she lives with me.
Well, I did find another translation which was helpful to me, and I'll put both of these in the chat. But the other translation by Bhikkhu Sujato, instead of burdensome, not burdensome, said being easy to look after, not being hard to look after.
Okay.
And that seemed a little easier for me to understand.
Yeah. I mean, I blame Anna Monica on this, but she takes such good care of me in certain ways, you know, that I've become quite dependent on. I'd probably be muy flaco if it wasn't for her. I wouldn't even know how to feed myself. Anyways, that's all I've got to say on that. Is there anybody who would like to say something, have a question, or put their voice in the room? Yeah, Javier, please. You got to unmute yourself.
Hi. I want to say that I usually get a bit of sleep during the meditation, and I in the past I had a teacher of yoga and said it's good to do some exercise before the meditation, maybe 15 minutes, to do yoga or some sport, some exercise to energize myself, and then I can meditate better. I feel that also.
And have you tried that?
Yes, yes.
And does it work for you?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good.
It's good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, the kind of common belief about yoga is that yoga was created so that the yogis could meditate more. It wasn't like yoga was developed as a separate practice. It was developed as a support for meditating originally. That's the rumor anyways, or the belief. Anyone else? Dario, did you want to say something, or no? Okay. Anyone else?
I'll offer a Spanish alternative to yoga, which is the siesta, which I just had for a couple of hours on my couch. That helped me concentrate very much also on this meditation, since my mind was very relaxed and not sleepy. So I agree, yoga might be a good idea, but siesta is also a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm going to do an afternoon or evening meditation, I have to take a nap that day first. Yeah, otherwise I'll take a nap during the meditation. Yeah, that's a very good suggestion, Carlos. Thank you.
Jim,
Yes.
I have a
Uriarte.
question. Yes.
Mhm.
I'm very curious. Are we studying Theravada Buddhism, or what kind of Buddhism are we practicing?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, we are mostly following the Theravadan teachings, which are, as you probably know, are considered to be the older teachings, early Buddhism, they will often call it, and they have been preserved in the Pali language and mostly preserved in the cultures of Sri Lanka, Myanmar or Burma, Thailand, and Cambodia. Yeah, every once in a while, because I don't know so much the Mahayana tradition, such as Zen and stuff, but every once in a while I might mention something from them, but mostly I draw from the Pali and Theravadan tradition.
And because I was reading a little bit about Buddhism, and I found out that there were, I think, lots of them. And when I
Yes.
found out about Theravada Buddhism, it said that it had like 3 steps. Like first it was, you have the old Theravada, then you have like the new Theravada, and it was a little bit confusing because apparently they're a little bit different. And I downloaded a book, and I don't know if it's the right one, and so it's a little bit confusing. It's from it says The Path of Purification.
Okay, that sounds
And
familiar.
translated from the Pali by Bhikkhu Nanamoli.
That particular monk doesn't ring a strong bell, but
Yeah.
chances are it's probably a good source. I would say it's a good source.
Would you like recommend me someone who has translated, or I don't know, like the one that you were telling us before?
Sure, I can send you some, but the teachers that I draw upon a lot are Bhikkhu Bodhi, Thanissaro Bhikkhu, any of the Ajahn Chah teachers like Ajahn Sumedho, the Thai forest tradition, the Mahasi tradition. There's so many.
Yeah.
The different, so there is a monk, and I see we're out of time, but I'll just add this. There's a German monk who now lives in the United States named Bhikkhu Analio, and he is really leading the way and is even kind of created this movement to change the name from Theravadan to early Buddhism. When, say, for instance, Joseph Goldstein and those teachers are referring to the teachings that they teach, to talk about it as early Buddhism. So these people are really trying to figure out, what did the Buddha really say? And then study that. Because yes, for 2,600 years, a lot of people have added things and changed things. And, like women were ordained at the time of the Buddha, but yet if you go to those Southeastern countries I mentioned, I'm still not sure that women are allowed to be ordained, or if it's done, it's kind of done outside of the sanction of the government, who also has their little hands in it, so there has been changes by the individual countries and their cultures and so forth. So these guys, led by Bhikkhu Analio, are trying to find, what did the Buddha really say? What was the earliest teachings of the Buddha? And these scholars compare the Pali to the Chinese text, to the Tibetan text, etc., to try to see if they can figure it out. But the one you're working, or the one you have, that one sounds like a good, that me suena. I can't remember exactly where, but I would
Yeah.
not discourage you from that book at all. That sounds like a good book.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're right at 11:45. And I know some of you like to do the small groups, which I'm happy to form, but are we okay with a little metta practice before we go to small groups? Okay, thank you. Okay, so as always, let's find a comfortable posture. Maybe re-dropping the body, or excuse me, the mind into the body, re-grounding ourselves in this present moment, re-embodying ourselves. I often like to put my hands right at my heart center so I can feel the heart center, because metta, or loving kindness, goodwill, is a heart practice, and also one very, very integral in the Theravada tradition, not inseparable from mindfulness, you could say. These teachings of the divine abodes, these immeasurables, of which loving kindness is the first one. So I'm going to repeat some phrases. This one we use phrases. And by the way, this also can be a concentration practice where we keep saying the phrases over and over and over again, like mantras. But I'll say some phrases and you could say them mentally to yourself, keeping in mind or being aware of any sensation that might arise. So we'll start with I, me. May I be well and healthy. May I be well and healthy. May I be safe and protected. May I live with ease. May I be happy. Now for the next group, the next team, let's offer loving kindness, metta, to those beings on the front line of the pandemic, the nurses and doctors and technicians and employees, workers who are at risk of getting the disease, or those who have been affected by it, and those families who have lost somebody. So kind of, if you know somebody, an individual, bringing that person to mind, or even as a group. May they be well and healthy. May they be safe and protected. May they live with ease and contentment. May they be happy. And now let's try a difficult person. That is, try to recall somebody in your life right now where you're having a little difficulty, little resentment, maybe a hurt, some pain. Bring this person to mind. Just imagining they're right there in front of you and you can give them these wishes of well-being. May you be well and healthy. May you be safe and protected. May you live with ease and contentment. May you be happy. And finally, all beings, without exception, just imagine spreading, extending these wishes of well-being to every creature. May all beings be well and healthy. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings live with ease and contentment. May all beings be happy. And finally, we'll share the merit of our practice today, of the teachings, of our Sangha, and of our Buddha nature with all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence and discrimination, racism, prejudice. And may all beings be free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their path, find their list of 8 that leads them to the end of suffering, that leads them to freedom. May all beings be free. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm just going to say one thing before I form the groups. So Saladana, the physical actual space there in the center of Madrid, work is going on right now to get that bathroom, the second bathroom, finished. In fact, I think the sink is going to be put in this week. And if anybody wants to be involved in like the management of it before I get back, or even while when and if I get back, siempre y cuando, no? Let me know, because some people are interested. They want to hold some yoga classes or whatever. And so I want to make sure we have a very clear set of normativas, rules as to how we could open it up safely. And so if anybody would like to be involved in that, please just send me an email or something, because it's kind of moving along. Meanwhile, okay, thank you. I will set up some groups and enjoy. Be about, a little bit less than 10 minutes, about 8 minutes or so.
I'm leaving. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, unmute yourself and
thank you.
Bring your name to the room. Thank you all. So nice to have you with me. Oh, our room is shrinking though. Not too many people want to do the breakout. Uh-oh. Maybe we could just stay right here in a breakout. Maybe we got 2 breakout rooms only. There we go. Javier, are you frozen?
We're still streaming.
Oh, forgot to turn it off. I will